And let me now tell you the tragedy of a profession called economics, profession called finance. My problem is that we cannot see these things coming, but we know a lot about which environments are vulnerable to black swans and which environments are not vulnerable to black swan. And you have to do is build robustness. It's so obvious. Cab drivers will pick up my point. The problem is once you spend too much time studying, you start losing sight of the idea. So let me show you the problem with rare events. The gentleman here, I debated him after the black swan came out. You see his picture. He was cited in a Wall Street Journal saying in summer of 2007 that events we saw in the markets, at the time it was like a prelude of 2008, but a very small prelude. He said, these events should have happened every 10,000 years. And luckily the Wall Street Journal provided very graciously his picture, or the rendition of his picture. Okay. And what strikes you there? What strikes you about both the gentleman, his picture, and the statement? Is that thanks to the Wall Street Journal, we know he's not 10,000 years old, right? He doesn't look 10,000 years old, right? So where's he getting his statement from? A theory. The rarer the event, the more you have to rely on the theory because you don't have enough observations. Very simple. The problem is that the rarer the event, the more consequences in some environments are associated with it. Say in finance, say a 100-year flood is going to be vastly more consequential than a 10-year flood. But the problem is that you don't know much about it because if you don't have 100 years of data. So you need a lot of data. The gentleman, incidentally, was employed by a firm called Lehman Brothers, if you remember. It's a firm that is no longer, where he's no longer employed. And even they did not have a track record going 10,000 years to be able to say this happens every 10,000 years. So really, we're building all these risk management systems based on exposure to events that we deem are rare when we know nothing about them. And even if they're extremely rare, as rare as we think they are, the consequences may be a lot bigger than we think they are. Very simple. Identify which one they are and solve the problem. So my solution is as follows. Okay, a solution but helped by a long tradition of people who are ignored in history, is with the following differences between Mediocristan and Extremistan. And I'm glad you guys use word that stan means state in Hindi and in Urdu, no? So I'm extremely honored to be able to finally apply this one, because in Arabic, stan doesn't mean anything. So they use it. It's imported from the Hindi, all right? So Mediocristan is a province with some characteristics, and Extremistan has other characteristics. And the difference between the two of them, okay, will enlighten us to where black swan opportunities and dangers are located. So let me play a thought experiment. I gather, say, 10,000 people, or say 1,000 people. Let's not make it crowded. I bring them over here, randomly selected from the world population, which means that, 20% of the world population is Indian, right? Okay, so 20% Indian, all right? About another 20% Chinese, and so on. One from New York. No more than one from Texas, please, all right? So have a good sample of the world population. You put them on a scale, and you weigh all these people, and you add to that sample the heaviest person you can find who can still be called a person, okay? How much of the total will he represent? Say he's 4 times the size of a regular person. Peanuts, okay? As we'd say in finance, 30 basis points, 0.3%. And if you move from 1,000 to 10,000, it'll be nothing. 3 basis points, okay, 0.03%. So, very simply, there are domains in which, when your sample is very large, no single observation can disrupt the total. How many of you have been in business school or studied statistics? Well, a lot of them, and I'm sure a lot more than raise their hands because it's not good at, all right. So, everything you learn is based on this concept called diversification, portfolio effect, law of large numbers. It does work with weight. In other words, if you're diversified, you're broad, not a single observation is going to put a dent in the total, okay? Does it work? Yes, it works with weight. It works with your caloric consumption. Not a single day. I eat about 800,000 calories a year. Actually, I'm lying. Maybe 1 million calories a year. Tonight there's dinner, gala dinner. I'm going to splurge. How many calories can I consume in a single day? 3,000, 4,000, 5,000? Nothing, all right? So not a single day is going to make a difference. Now let me compare it to another province called Extremistan. Unfortunately, fortunately, I can't double my weight in any given day. Unfortunately, I can't, lose 80% of my weight in a single day. I mean, 80% would be too much. 10% would be good, all right? You can't even do that in a single day, all right? Now, can you lose 80% of your wealth in a single day? Yes, very good. Very good, the difference between two domains. There's a domain in which the probabilistic structure, a structure of uncertainty, is extremely different from the one we study at school. And that domain, I call it Extremistan. Use the same sample of 1,000 people. Now, of course, same 20% Indian, we said, 20% Chinese, and so on. One from Texas, no more. Okay, so we have that sample. And add to that sample the wealthiest person on a planet who can still be called a person. Okay? How much of the total will he or she represent? 30 basis points? How much?
03.
Sorry?
03. 0.03.
So no. You have the wealthiest person. He's worth 64 billion, and the rest will be worth maybe $1 million. All right. So we're talking about there'll be a rounding error for him. Everything will come from the exception. In Extremistan, everything comes from the exception. Everything, almost in economic life, everything is dominated by exception. So you have to make sure that you're both protected from some classes of events and exposed to another class of events, the beneficial black swan, negative black swan. It's very simple, and if you see that difference, you know a lot more than the team around President Obama, the current president. Is he still president today? Or still around, Geithner? You know a lot more about him if you know the difference between these two. You know that where economic models, where statistical models work, they don't work. Where risk management models work, don't work. Where there's a structure of uncertainty that we know and one that we don't know. Okay? So, let me give you an idea of how economic life is dominated by the extreme. When I was a trader for 20 years. I was a little ashamed of it, so I don't really say it in public, but you guys are nice people, so I can say it. Anyway, so when traders get together, what do they talk about? We used to talk about art. And now I became a writer, all right? Now when writers get together, what do they talk about? Money, all right? So I got to know a lot about the book business, from the economics of the book business. I wish, I would go back to trading so I can talk about real things, right? Anyway, so I discovered one thing. There are 1 million manuscripts in the English language, novels in the English language, in the market. A lot of these novels are, written by people who are employed by Starbucks in the United States. In the UK, it's near Cafe Nero, or others say they work for pubs. In India, I don't know what the tradition for novelists, but typically they're unpublished with a novel, and they identify themselves as writers, all right? Out of these 1 million novels in the English language, about 22,000 will be published in any given year. Out of the 22,000 published, how many will represent half the sales? Sorry? Between 5 and 30, depend on whether a lady from Edinburgh is active or not active, or something like that. Okay, so you realize we have environments in economic life, thanks to globalization, is getting worse. Okay, more and more dominated by extreme. We're moving more and more into Extremistan, where most of the properties are determined by the exception. Okay, you have to identify these domains and see how exposed you are to them. So, variations, you have two classes of variations. Up top you have Mediocristan, where you have a lot of variations, but nothing exceptionally big and no big calm periods. And at the bottom you have Extremistan, Mediocristan, Extremistan. Which brings me to the Turkey problem. And I'll wrap up, in how many, 5 more minutes? 5, 10 minutes, and then I'll wrap up, and then we can take questions, because the interesting things are in the questions, in the Q&A. Incidentally, there'll be maybe a low correlation between your question and my answer, because I learned when I started, on my book tour, I learned one thing. It's confusing when you listen to the question. When a journalist asks you questions, it's always confusing to listen to them. You have to think. So just answer without thinking, all right? So I started answering even without listening, and it works, all right? So I may try it. If I don't hear very well, we may just answer. So I'll always complete my presentation all right, regardless of Q&A. No, I'm kidding. I'll listen. Anyway, so brings me to the turkey problem. My approach to the black swan. In the black swan, a turkey is fed for 1,000 days by a butcher, and every day confirms to Bernanke's group, working with the turkey, that the butcher loves turkeys with increased statistical confidence. Every day confirms that for the risk management department of the turkey, the economics department of the turkey, the Federal Reserve team of economists lent to the turkey, to study its properties. Okay, every day confirms that butchers love turkeys. Comes the 1,001st day. Incidentally, 1,001 days is of Indian origin. No, not Arabic. You see how we took a lot of things from you guys, right? Anyway, so I was modeling it after 1,001 nights, right? So, the 1,001st day is Thanksgiving -2, T -2. The butcher will surprise the turkey. Okay? So the turkey will have a black swan event. It's going to be a big surprise. Big surprise for the turkey. Is it a big surprise for the butcher? No. Is it a big surprise for you? No. So this whole idea is we're not to be the turkey. Simple. Okay? That's simple. Right? That's the whole idea. Visibly, the banking system, there were turkeys. This incidentally graph I gave, that was before the thing. I was saying that these people make money regularly, but they're turkeys. The banking system in 1982, 1983 lost more than history of banking, simply because they have a lot of hidden risk, and they explode, and they say, well, they're unforeseen events. But they're very fragile to these events. And of course, banks said, oh, it's exceptional. We only lost money one quarter. Of course, they lost everything they ever made. And then did it again in 91, and of course did it again now. And of course, hedge funds do that, and usually they write a letter saying, dear investors, surely these events are as much of a surprise to you as they are to us. Linguistic evolution is non-existent in that business. It's the same letter that you see people rewrite every time, not knowing someone else. No variations, all right? Anyway. But the problem is that, so you're fooled by quiet period because you use the wrong model for Mediocristan, for Extremistan. The gentleman here, during the period when the turkey is, being fed by the butcher, a period when the banks are making money, pennies, sitting on barrels of dynamite, he would pronounce the events as the great moderation. First of all, please don't tell me I look like him. Right.